word compares anakazo, so that my household can be full. So when a principality brings government, you need another agent to compel people to come. You can build a church, but to be empty. If you are not in any of this category, my brother, my sister, you are not part of God's agenda. You don't become a part of God's agenda because you belong to a church. You become a part of God's agenda because there's a responsibility God has committed to you. There are those who are seeing and are telling the church what God is saying. There are those who are standing at the gate to defend the integrity of God, and there are those who are talking to God about what is happening so that God can act on behalf of the church. You must fall into one of these categories. This is what Christianity is about, that you are a part and a parcel of God's program. But there are few people who are participating in God's program. Church is full, participators are empty. Full church, few participators. So there can be no legislation, there can be no litigation. The reason these things are very important is because if they don't happen, God's agenda will be truncated. And if they begin to happen, the agenda of the devil will be truncated. Now that I've been able to show you the dimensions of priesthood, let me show you the agenda of the devil and how priesthood stops it. Because this is where the weight of litigation and legislation actually is. The ability to propagate laws that enforces God's will and truncates the will of the devil, and the ability to take advantage of already established laws to halt what the devil is doing, either in the lives of individuals, in the lives of families, in systems, and in territories. It's not just gathering in church to pray, it's what the prayer is doing. That is what the litigation is all about. That when we pray, what is the outcome of the prayer? But before you can pray those prayers, you need to know what to do to be able to pray those prayers. And that's what I've told you just now. Honoring him and ministering to him, beholding him, waiting upon him, and participating in his realm. By the time you are doing this, you can represent him. But in order to know where you are representing him, you need to know what the counter forces are doing. And so there are three categories of spirits and three categories of men you will contend with that I will talk to you about now as I begin to talk about legislation and litigation. In Ephesians chapter 6 from verse 10. Give me scriptures now and see what the Bible says. He said, finally, my brethren. He taught them about salvation. When he was done teaching them, he now came to the real matter, where the will of God is defended and the will of the devil is truncated. And he said, finally, my brethren. He said, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Three things you will see here is, number one, you can be a Christian. That's why I call them my brethren. But you may not be strong in the Lord. And you may not be strong in the power of his might. The man who is strong in the Lord is the man who has found his standing in God. It's not just the man who is born again. The man who is born again is his brethren. But the man who is strong in the Lord is the man who through priesthood has found a standing in God. That's a man who knows how to commune with God by ministering to him. That's a man who knows how to behold God and become like God. That's a man who knows how to wait upon the Lord until the voice of God comes to him. And that's a man who can participate in God's kingdom, so enact God's program. He said, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. I'm not talking power here, but I would have shown you something. The word power and might is the word iskus and kratos. The word iskus has to do with internal ability, capacity to stand. And the word kratos has to do with dynamic power that is born out of synergy. And so a man who is strong in the Lord, something happens to him. There is a power building up on his inside, and there is also a connection that man builds that gives him a strategic advantage in order to superintend over a territory. You notice that when Daniel was praying in Daniel chapter 9, the Bible said for 21 days, Daniel knelt down, he didn't stand up. That is power. There is a power that is stronger than opening blind eyes. The real power in the kingdom is the ability to stand in God's presence. A man never ate any pleasant bread for 21 days. He stood at one spot. That's power. When you read the Old Testament, you will find men who really have power. There was a time God told Ezekiel, lie on one side for 390 days. And for 390 days, Ezekiel didn't move. He was lying on his right hand side. When he finished and you thought he would go on holiday, God said turn to the other side, and he lay there for 40 days. A man was interceding for 430 days. That man is stronger than who raises the dead, because a man who can bring his body under subjection is stronger than than a man who can take a city. And so when he was saying be strong in the Lord, he was talking about an unleashing of a power that is on your inside. There's a power you have that can make you tarry in God's presence until you become like Mount Zion that cannot be moved. Did you notice what happened in the book of Ezekiel? After Ezekiel stayed there for a long time, Ezekiel didn't need to go out anymore. Anytime Ezekiel wants to go out, he will say the Spirit of the Lord took me by the lock of my hair and carried me. Ezekiel began to travel in the Spirit, because he tamed his body to a point where his spirit could come out of his body as we. It's a dimension of power that makes a man becomes invincible. We are too distracted by the world system. We are in every birthday, we are in every marriage, we are in every program, we are on every website, wasting our time when strong men are building stamina on the altar. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. The word power of his might is synergy. Because see, when you become strong inside, you will notice that other entities that are like you will begin to come to you, because your friends are not only on earth, you can also make friends in the spirit. The reason you have not made friends in the spirit is because you have not stayed long enough. Stay on the altar for 3 months and see who will come to you. You will be shocked that while you are yet there, Gabriel will show up and say, I was given speed, I was made to fly swiftly to come and give you skill and understanding. Wait on the altar and see if you will not see Zacharias, if you will not see Isaiah, if you will not see Enoch. They have not gone anywhere. The Bible called them the spirit of judgment made perfect. That's what Kratos is talking about. When Daniel wanted to contend with the prince of Persia, he needed connections. And there are some connections that are not in the government house. There are some connections that are in the throne room. And suddenly a cherub will walk up to you and say, I came to help you. That's why you will know that our helpers are many. When you pursue men and it doesn't work, pursue spirits. Our helpers are not only natural. There is a place you will get to, you will be shocked that Captain Kuma just passed to glory, and through priesthood you too can enter glory. You don't need to die to go to glory. You can go to glory through the altar. One can go through dying, another can go through the altar. And when synergy is achieved, something will change. Did you not read about Jesus? The Bible said in Matthew 17 verse 2, after 8 days he went to the mountain to pray, and he said suddenly there stood with him Moses and Elias. That is Kratos. When that man comes down, he can take a territory, because it's no longer one man. He is one man, but he's fighting with the strength of many. There are many prophets that walked in Kenya before now. When you pray and you don't know what to do, stay there. The prophet that conquered Kenya 20 years ago can still come back to tell you what he did to subdue the Kenya of 20 years ago. The power of his might. The earth is a distraction. This world is too noisy. See, sometimes you need to hear stories of witches and understand what they do. A witch can go on 100 days fast, not looking at the sun, to be able to meet a demon. A demon that has wickedness enough to afflict with death. A witch can be indoors for 8 months, and that witch may only drink water and maybe light food once in a day. And for 8 months that witch will not step out, because the witch is preparing herself to meet the devil. And a principality will come to that witch and empower that witch to be able to subdue system. And so that witch doesn't need religion. If he enters your office and you don't have the stature to dethrone her, the day she enters that office, that day you will leave that office, because of the weight of her priesthood. She came with 8 months of fasting. She came with 8 months of intercession. She came with 8 months of communion with demons. You are strolling about on Twitter and on Instagram, and you put your hands in the pocket. You want to fight a witch that has more education in the spirit than you. We have all the advantages, but we are illiterate in the spirit. And the reason is because we have not waited long enough, because we don't have the power of his might. There's no synergy. Do you know how many intercessors can bring down Kenya? Do you know how many angels must be deployed for Kenya to be won? What is the spiritual strategy? How many men are even aware? Before the Holy Ghost came down, they needed 120 intercessors. They knew, and so they gathered in the upper room. When the time was right, the Holy Ghost came down. How many intercessors are needed to take Kenya? How many angels are needed to trigger the revival in Kenya? How many hours of prayer is required? How many quorum is needed in the throne room? What is the weight of litigation required for Kenya to appear before God? You don't read that in the book. It is shown to you. We lack spiritual intelligence. Sit down. Sit down. I don't want to go high yet. He said, put on the whole armor of God, wherewith you'll be able to stand all the wiles of the devil. And he told us something. He said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. See, these spirits are organized. They are systemic. They are deliberate. They are well structured and programmed. They don't just act haphazardly. He said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. Principalities are creatures in the spirit realm who are princes, but they don't have territories. You see, when you study the Kedah of the spirit realm, you will find out something. That after Christ, you have thrones. After thrones, you have dominions. After dominions, you have principalities, and then you have powers. That is in Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. When dominions fell, that is Lucifer, the son of the morning, because he was like a man. Hope you know the man that was created a dominion. That's why when he made man, he said, have dominion. And he gave man the earth realm as his territory. Because a dominion is a prince that has a territory. The messenger of a dominion is a principality. And so what the Bible was teaching us is that the way the devil colonizes territories is very strategic. What he does is that he sends a prince that does not have the territory, whom's lust is to possess a territory. That's why principalities come first. And so when they come, what they do is to take a census of all the category of people that are in the territory. The reason is because the authority over territories belong to men. He said the heavens belong to God. He said, but the earth he has given to the sons of men. And so when the principality shows up, he will find out those who are prophetic. Because the prophetic people are the first gatekeepers. If you are a prophet and you are not on the altar, what will happen is that your spiritual antenna will be open. And so any spirit can manipulate you. Because you have the ability to pick signals. If a prophet shows up here now, his emotions are high, his sensitivity is high. That's why many prophets are victims of immorality, because they pick frequencies so much and their emotional intelligence is very high. And so what principalities do is to search men that have such gifts, and then they begin to traffic them through lust. When they traffic lust in their direction and they are able to infiltrate them, they will now use them to infiltrate the territory. And so what the devil will do is that he will raise three categories of people. The first people he will raise are messengers. The messengers are those who talk and disseminate the activity of the devil. Some of them become fornicators, some of them become liars, some of them become malicious people. They keep malice, they create contention, provoke anger. What he's trying to do is to create an atmosphere for the other princes to come in. Because anywhere there is contention, anywhere there is jealousy, anywhere there is fight and argument, evil can exist there. And so when the messengers are able to do it, you'll find a young lady, she goes to sleep with a married man, the family scatters. As the family scatters, the children go wayward, the wife goes into another thing, the man goes into another. They are discomfiting the structure of the territory. And this is what the messengers do. Somebody thinks his mouth is rapid. He goes to a place, plant the seed of discourse, cause problem between two people. The problem escalates and affects 20 people. They are called messengers. So many people are bearing the name Magdalene, Martha and Mary, but they are agents of the devil. They are the lowest cadre of demonic powers. They are messengers. They bring gossip, they bring malice, they bring backbiting, they bring lies, they spread rumor. And when they have created that atmosphere of chaos, then the next category of people come in. Those ones are called warlocks. A warlock is a spiritual programmer. A warlock is more intelligent than a messenger. A messenger, the devil just takes advantage of his appetite. He desires to see people quarrel. He likes it when people are fighting. He likes argument, so he keeps spreading it. And when he creates the atmosphere, warlocks now go to work. Now that there is contention, warlocks will now create a program so that because you people are vulnerable to malice, problems will keep happening here for the malice never to end. And so a simple problem that provoked a malice of 2 days suddenly can no longer be settled for 10 years. Because so long as the malice remains, the atmosphere is sustained. A warlock can show up because this man fornicated. A messenger came and made the man to fornicate. The wife now, the warlock will create a program of unforgiveness. So the wife cannot forgive the man. For 15 years, he will keep telling the man, you are a fornicator. You betrayed me. I will never forgive you. Bitterness is growing in her heart, and then this man is being pushed away. So what will happen is that the man will continue with the program of fornication, and the woman will continue with the program of bitterness. That family is now open. What they are doing is creating a system for the other demonic spirits to come and dwell. When a warlock finishes, then a sage comes. A sage is a warlock that is of the highest order. His job is to impart gifts and capacities. It is actually a sage that demons work with. A sage can come to you and say, bring your hand. You will spit and rub his hand and say, from now, if anybody is bitten by scorpion, rub your hand there, it will go. You will do it, it will happen. Because a sage has spiritual intelligence. So a sage trains warlocks and imparts them. Sages are not many. Sages are transmitters between spirits and men. A sage trains a warlock, and a warlock manipulates messengers. But the goal is to create an atmosphere where demons can dwell. Now, if there is no priesthood to discern that atmosphere and to scatter it, you will notice that as the atmosphere keeps building and becomes strong, it will become a spiritual system. That spiritual system is where the princes of darkness will dwell. This is how devils take people, families, and nations. Somebody may offend you and you say you never forgive him. You are not doing yourself a favor. You are actually doing yourself a disfavor. Because that unforgiveness, the energy that is coming out of you, you may not know, but there are wise men who are interpreting it in the spirit. Because every man who is passing carries an energy. If your heart is full of love and purity, it's like a white cloud in the spirit. The demonic beings they can see. That's how they know those who are Christians. They don't know those who are Christians in the spirit because they call themselves Christians. They know those who are Christians because of the kind of energy they emit. And so when you pass, they can pick those energies. If there is bitterness, if there is lust, if there is anger, they can see it. And then they know that, oh, this one is a victim. They now begin to trouble you. This is why you forgive people whether they deserve it or not. Because it's about your own safety. The energy you are emitting in the spirit is a language. A warlock can see it. If a warlock sees you, he can tell where you are coming from. He can tell what you want to do. He can tell who you are. He can read your energy and discern your personality. How many of you have watched Merlin? That's how cities are born. You need the intelligence of a warlock to build a city. And so what the warlocks and the sages do is that they create spiritual quadrants of weaknesses that are in the men of those territories. Some are full of bitterness, some are full of pride, some are full of lust, some are full of anger. When those quadrants are completed, then the demonic princes will begin to come in. When the princes come in, some will sit on the prophetic corrupt people. Some will sit on the proud corrupt people. Some will sit on those who are full of lust. When they dominate them, they now have territorial legality. You can't just come and say, get out. No, it won't work. The reason is because the will of these men that they have enslaved gives them legality to be in those systems. And so when you come into the government, you will find legalities that princes have to sit in those governments. If you come into families, you will find legalities that princes have to sit there. It will take more than doctrine for things to change. You can preach from morning till night. Those princes will not go.